Coming up, it's double trouble with Toulouse being the second French side to play on English shores. Can Wakefield avoid the chop? And how far can Warrington or Wigan go with new coaches at the helm? Yes, hello and good day. Hey, and welcome to the Sideline Chat podcast, the one-stop shop for rugby league. Along with your mate Mark Hendry, I'm Connor Marcellus, and today, apart from being the Australia Day edition of the Sideline Chat podcast, it's our final look at the Betfred Super League 2022 previews, and we start off very Aussie, going French. We look at Toulouse Olympique and how they're going to go coming up in 2022.
The newest team in the Super League because they absolutely dominated the championship, won the $1 million pound game, which...
$1 million or £1 million? Get your currencies right.
Sorry. £1 million pound game. It elevates them up to the Super League, and as you said, at the top of the program, double trouble on English shores from the French.
Which, nothing new for England. They've been experiencing trouble from France probably like 10 minutes after William the Conqueror, so this is nothing new for them. They like being invaded by French henchmen, the English.
Oh, God.
What a wonderful way to start. Just like incite the English riots already.
Yes.
But never mind about that. Toulouse. Well, I mean, honestly, over the last 5 years, Toulouse Olympique, since returning to the championship structure, well, the RFL structure, really, they've just been a class above everyone else in the championship.
Most certainly they have been. And just have a look at all the games that they won throughout the 2021 season and championship. I don't think they've got, defeated once or twice?
No, well, mind you, they only did play about 16 matches all up, playoffs included. So really, it's only been about 14 games they've played all year out of the close to 22 the championship was set for. But they can't help that.
No.
Because of the travel restrictions and the fact that half the championship was part-timers anyway, and thus couldn't travel to France.
Yeah. But they did a magnificent job throughout the whole season. There's no word that nothing bad you could say about Toulouse in 2021.
But no. I mean, it was a perfect season. They had a close encounter against Halifax, to be quite fair, in a high-scoring affair, where they came out on top 44-34. But other than that, hardly they were troubled in the regular season of the championship.
Yeah, that's unbelievable. A clean sweep in the whole season.
And the fact that they only got 2 proper home games, the semi-final against the Batley Bulldogs, where they looked like they were in trouble, or when they were trailing 12-0 early, only to come back and win 51-12.
Yeah, exactly.
And then again, in the £1 million game against the Featherstone Rovers, where they went well defensively for like the first 50 minutes or so. They were like up 18-0. Featherstone then came back with close to 2 tries, make it competitive at 18-12, thanks to Brett Ferris's double. And then they just ran away with it in the final 20 minutes.
And you just have a look at the scores overall. They were not small wins. They were absolutely massive, massive wins. Like, against Widnes, they won 70-0. Whitehaven the following week, 66-0. Swinton, 66-18. Like, seriously.
And Bradford, 10 tries to 1, winning 60-6.
And then even in round 22 against Newcastle Thunder, they won 82-12. Like, seriously, they're massive wins.
Against championship level opponents. And I mean, without Toronto there, that's sort of like, this was practically their year without the Wolfpack to stop them, because 2018-19 was sort of the height of the Toronto-Toulouse rivalry. But the only two non-English clubs in the championship structure, and 2 of the more successful sides.
Yeah. But it just goes to show that once one powerful team is gone, the other one really comes out and just absolutely dominates.
And I think it was wise that they didn't get picked in 2020 to be in Super League last year. We were all thinking they should have been, but turns out it went the way the least intrudes. But I think that works to Toulouse's favour more than it did Lee in 2021. Because they had 12 months to prepare, and they've certainly prepared on that front.
Most certainly did. And like I just said, the results shown that they prepared extremely well, and they can do well in the Super League by showing off the championship form. I know Super League's a whole different beast, yeah, you could say, compared to championship, but I reckon they've got it in them.
Well, I had a bit of a rotation of the sub. I had Bastien Arders left to play for Limoux in the French Elite Championship. Jai Hitchcox has joined the Lee Centurions. And Remy Castille, who helped them get into Super League, has also finally called time on his career as probably one of France's, amongst one of France's, well, I'll put it bluntly, the first French captain to lift the Challenge Cup. That's a big slice of history.
Very much so.
There, a long-time skipper of the Catalan Dragons as well.
Yeah, very much so. Can it repeat itself? Do you stand a track? Hope so when rugby league in France grows, but in the meantime...
Well, it's restored to its 1938-39 levels when it was absolutely demolishing French rugby. And it was a sport that was only about 5 years old, but yet had captured large swathes of the southwest.
Yes, most certainly did. On the games, they've got James Cunningham from Huddersfield, Chris Hankinson from Wigan, Godwin Springer from Featherstone, Matthew Russell from Lee, Lucas Albert from
Carcassonne, I would believe that.
Yes, Carcassonne. Unless I've missed any more.
I think I've got Max Clark from the Sheffield Eagles.
There you go. So they've gained some experience there, but that will help them.
Well, what they're banking on is what Catalan were doing in 2021. They're banking on the French talent in their squad to shine through. So it's your Mathieu Gissomes, it's your Justin Sangares, it's your Maxime Pouets, if I'm pronouncing that name right. I'm probably not, but still. But it's that backing of that younger French talent that is the future of France. Like with Corentin Lecam, Arthur Moore, Bletchy Laguerre, Joe Chan over at Catalan. This is what Toulouse are doing as well, and I think they can achieve some good fortune out of this.
But they have lost Remy Castille, who is probably full of a lot of experience.
I think there's still a lot of experience in that at Toulouse forward pack. I think
definitely.
Joseph Paulo, Dominic Peyrou, Harrison Hansen has been going around for seemingly years at this point. I mean, regardless of whether he's at Wigan or he was at Lee. And I think they could still... It's a very interesting backline they've got assembled. I mean, they've got Hankinson in there. They've got Ilias Bergal in there. But they also got the likes of Matty Russell, Junior Vaibai, Tony Gigot to try and squeeze into that side somewhere. So it's going to be very interesting to see how this pans out.
And it goes to show that they've kept the bulk of their squad from the Championship coming up to
Always
the Super
important, keeping the bulk of your side in when you're coming up to Super League. But it's also nice to get some of that high-grade quality signings that you can only find in Super League and in the NRL.
Which is what they've done. So they're set to do well.
Hopefully set to do well, because this is big for France, as it is.
Most definitely.
Now, the first 5 fixtures Toulouse Olympique will go up with, opening at home in Toulouse against the Huddersfield Giants. A lot of expectations. Passionate home crowd. I'm expecting probably 10,000 out there for the first home game in a stadium that has a capacity of at least 19,000. So
yeah. Look, the home crowd's definitely going to be behind them, and Huddersfield is going to be the first team from in the Super League to come and play at the Stade
Ernest Wallon. Yeah. I think it's a bit of beautiful poetry because Huddersfield is the birthplace of rugby league, and Toulouse is the latest newcomers to the British game. So I think it's a bit poetic that the birthplace of rugby league will be there in the other part of Western France to welcome the new guys.
Yeah, you could say, that's good setup. I hope to see Toulouse win that one.
And then in their first away trip of the season, because they're now full-time, they'll get more games in this year. A trip to Salford, whether that still will be at the AJ Bell Stadium, is it's really anyone's guess at this point.
Yep, it certainly is. But look, I'd say Toulouse will win that one.
Well, I mean, they last met in the qualifiers of 2018, and mind you, this is when Jackson Hastings first joined the club, and he actually ended up doing well in that game. It was 44-18 Salford's way from memory.
But yeah, Warrington is around 3 back at home for
back-to-back home games. Warrington Wigan. Ouch.
Yeah,
that's rough, right? That is rough like there. I mean, Huddersfield, it could be a flip of a coin. Salford, I think, yes. Yeah. Just to spite you.
Yeah, no, I agree.
But Warrington, Wigan back to back. Although they're home games, the quality of the Wolves and the Warriors.
But it will be a good experience for them to get
Character development. That's what this will be. This will show because Toulouse did well, and they have had mixed success against Super League clubs in the past when they've come up to play in the qualifiers and that. But this will be full on, full time. So this has got to be depending.
Yeah, and like I was just about to say, it's a good experience for them. They'll know where they stand against these two clubs earlier on in the season, and then they can work their way towards something as the season progresses on when they play St. Helens and Warrington.
And the Catalan Dragons in the French Derby. That French Derby is going to be an absolute
belter.
I'm expecting claret, gold, and royal blue flares to go off. Whether it's Star Gilbert Brutus or the Ernest Wallon, I am expecting flares to go off in the streets.
Most definitely. It's going to be the French Derby is the one I'm looking forward to already.
And finally, their second trip to England to face Wakefield Trinity at the Be Well Support Stadium.
Yeah, that's going to be a Toulouse victory for sure.
Well, we don't really have high opinions of Wakefield going into the season, do we?
No, not at all.
But more on that later. But now we've got to focus back on Toulouse. Of course, there has been a bit of rumbling as of late, sort of questions and over vaccination and the travel restrictions the French government have placed in. About 1/3 of the squad, one named, one unnamed, sort of threatening to walk out before the season even kicks off. What do you make of that?
I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see who plays out. Hopefully, no one walks away. Don't get me wrong, but yeah, it's a bit of spanner in the works to start off.
I mean, it is a huge spanner in the works, and distractions translate to poor on-field performance. I mean, you look at every single side that suffered a scandal in the preseason or suffered a controversy outside of their control, and look what happened to them and the starts they had.
Yeah, no, but for a new club coming into the Super League, this is not what they need.
Oh, this would be the last thing they ever wanted.
They want to go in 100%
Already,
focused.
they are the favourites for relegation. No surprises there, because even though Sylvain Houlet, who we are going to speak to, who exclusively on Facebook later tonight, this will be a big test, because over the last 5 years, we have seen what we have had Hull KR, the London Broncos, Toronto, and the Leeds Centurions all come up to Super League. Well, League twice, but it's only 4 clubs in the last 5 years have come up to Super League. What happened? Well, League came up in 2017 at the expense of Hull KR in the first place, relegated the same year to the Catalan Dragons. Hull KR came up back in their place, actually survived relegation, finishing top 3 in the old qualifier system. London came up, got relegated the following year. Toronto came up, only lasted 6 games before collapsing completely and then rebuilding themselves in the North America Rugby League competition. And then League came back again with very little preparation and paid the price for it.
It certainly did. So the record hasn't been that good in some teams.
1 in 5.
Others, yeah.
Since the promotion relegation system came in, and this is over a period of 5 to 6 years, 1 club has managed to stay in Super League, and that was Hull KR.
Yeah. So it's not a very high success rate, but hopefully that doesn't happen to Toulouse. They get promoted and then relegated in the same year. I hope that does not happen.
Oh, it'd be a devastating blow for French Rugby League, because I think Super League moving forward would be there with 2 French teams.
Yeah.
And I've talked in the past with Shane Richardson about the model of a 10-team competition with teams from France, with Catalan and Toulouse being in that setup. So if they're relegated from here, it might be a bit of a setback, but I think it might inspire more Frenchmen, juniors, women, to take up the game and really build up on what was lost. All those years of development that was lost between 1940 up until now.
Yeah.
That has to be addressed.
Yeah. And it's going to be addressed over the next couple of years. Rugby league in France is going to grow very, very quickly.
It grew fast when it was first introduced in 1934. I actually gone back and read Mike Rylance's book, The Forbidden Game, The Untold Story of French Rugby League, about how under the Vichy regime during the war, World War II, rugby league was almost wiped out completely because of unionist collaborators with the Vichy government led by Marshal Philippe Pétain. And it was because of people like Jean Gallier, who helped bring the game to France and established Toulouse Olympique, as well as be in the French resistance to help bring rugby league back. And of course, you had France's greatest hero, Charles de Gaulle. He reversed all the bans that Vichy France had made on professional sport, and that did bring rugby league back. But hamstrung by the discrimination of the French Vichy state and the French rugby union establishment, set them back several years. I mean, look at the decline of France as it was. I mean, in the 70s, they were part of kangaroo tours, as when the Kangaroos would play Great Britain. Now, you look at them, they're only just now starting to come back.
Yeah. So they definitely make up for lost time, and they are going to make it back very, very quickly, indeed.
But Toulouse's equation, it's simple as this. Win more games than every other team that has finished 12th or collapsed in the last 5 years. Simple as that.
Yeah.
We're not asking Toulouse to be in the playoffs. And I think they understand that they're not going to get on for the playoffs straight away. But I think their goal, if they can finish in the top 11, which is literally anywhere above the relegation zone, I think they will count that as a success and building blocks to build on moving forward.
Yeah, I totally agree with that.
And defensively, because defense wins games, and I think even though we know that they got attacking flair, they've got to be able to defend as well.
Yeah.
Because defense really hasn't been an issue for them over the last couple of years.
No,
and it will suddenly become a fulcrum of what they need to do to succeed.
And like we said, Super League is a different base to the Championship. So
this is the highest level of British rugby, well, European rugby league you can get.
Yeah.
That you have to perform if you want to stay.
And if you don't, you get relegated, and then you just try and start all over again, and you work your way back up again.
Yeah, everyone bails on you when you get relegated. You don't want to get... It would be a disaster if Toulouse got relegated, because I think it would take several years for them to rebuild.
Yeah, maybe.
I mean, look at Lee. It took them 4 years to rebuild, although the last couple of months was rushed for them.
True.
And then they only ended up winning about 3 matches anyway.
Yeah.
So, yeah, they'll be separated. Their attacking brand of football that we have seen them do, I think this will separate them from cellar dwellers like Wakefield and Salford. But, like I said, defence will need to really be on point if they want to try and break into Super League.
Yeah. Look, I hope they don't go relegated. They'll do well. I personally believe.
Last year they finished first in the Betfred Championship and were crowned the champions of the £1 million game. This year, for their inaugural year in the Betfred Super League, I think they will finish 10th. Not be absolutely disastrous, but will do enough.
It'll still be a success.
Yeah. I think they will stay.
Yeah. Me, on the other hand, I've got heading into their first season against some of the, amongst some of the biggest clubs in the world, like St. Helens and Warrington, and coming to big cat names, but mostly St. Helens and Warrington. Everyone will be watching Toulouse very, very close to see how well they perform under big pressure games. I see them challenging the top teams as the season comes on, and by the time they come to the end, they'll be up there. I see them finishing third in their debut season in the Super League.
You're mad. You know that, right? And I know this little French history lesson is sort of dragged on. So, one that says, down in the cellar, but will stay. And you say, dark horse for the playoffs.
Yeah.
Well, we'll see about that.
How much would it be? It's split right in the middle between us both.
Well, we'll see. But yeah, like I said, the French history lesson has gone on long enough. And I think we're going to bore a lot of people with it. Now, moving on to the rest of the England contingent. Wakefield Trinity. Disaster.
You could say that.
It was a disaster. I mean, they had that tight game against Leeds in the first game of the season, but since then, it has been an absolute disaster. That 7-game losing streak across league and cup fixtures, well, they got towed up pretty hard by some clubs, such as St. Helens and and Wigan in the league, and by Catalan in the cup.
Yeah. But the back end of the season, they were more consistent, though.
Well, only after Chris Chester got sacked, and they had nothing to play for. But that first 7 fixtures they played across the first 6 rounds and round 3 of the cup, that cost them. Yeah. And then the second losing run in the middle of the year, between July and August, that basically sealed Chris Chester's fate.
It certainly did, which is unfortunate. But they come out at the end of the year from round, what?
The last 7 games of the season.
Yeah, they had more wins than losses, though.
Well, yeah, Willie Poaching he was the only bright spark Wakefield could enjoy in 2021.
Yeah, and let's hope he can continue on that what do you say, momentum? I would say like a small momentum heading into this upcoming season.
One of the bright spot points for Wakefield when Willie Poaching did take over, well, there's 2, but the first one, their round 19 victory against Warrington at home, where they stormed out to a 3-try lead, 18-0 against Warrington.
Yeah.
Only third behind Saints and Catalan, mind you, and then absolutely tearing apart Huddersfield at Newcastle. So they finished on a high note, but where was that for the rest of the year?
Exactly. They were finding form to...
Their only saving grace in 2021 was the fact that the Lee Centurions were performing worse than they were.
And Salford.
And Salford, eventually. But they were 11th for the majority of the year. And only got lucky at the back end. End of things.
That's true. But yeah, that win against Warrington in round 19, that was a surprise victory.
45 minutes, 18-0 they led. And it was only then Warrington put on the comeback, but Wakefield were just too good in the end.
They certainly were. And that was one of few highlights they had during the season.
Yeah, it was. But it was a very dark year for Wakefield. And it was sad because they avoided relegation once, beating Bradford in the £1 million game in 2015, when Chris Chester was at the helm, I believe. And they almost challenged for semi-final berths in 2017 and 18, but since then it's just been this...
steady decline, you could say.
It has been a steady decline, though.
Which is sad.
Everything was expecting big things of Wakefield, and they just haven't delivered.
Not yet, anyway.
Well, we'll see how it goes. Standout player for me, well, in his final year, as it turns out, was David Fafita.
Yeah.
24 appearances he made in his final year for Trinity. Joint top try scorer with 7 tries, 2 try assists, 1 from 2 goals converted, 100 tackle busts, 47 offloads, 7 line breaks, and 2,526 running meters.
That's pretty impressive. And we know what he was capable of before this season, and he's just shown again why he is a force to be reckoned with.
On his day.
Yes.
I mean, he's no Alex Walmsley, but he was Wakefield's big man and go forward.
True. Very true indeed.
So he has left Wakefield, not confirmed whether he is retired or simply moved to a lower league club outside of the League One structures, but he is amongst the transfers is out of Wakefield. Alex Walker, another of them, currently training trial for the Halifax Panthers. Chris Green linking up with the Lee Centurions. Connor Bailey joining the Newcastle Thunder. Innes Senior returning to the Huddersfield Giants, with Joe Arundel also linking up at the Halifax Panthers. Joe Westerman joining the Castlewood Tigers. The Woods, Josh and Kyle. Josh Wood departing for Barrow, and Kyle going to Halifax. Ollie Greensmith joining up with the Dewsbury Rams. And as yet to be confirmed, Ryan Hampshire is a free agent on the player market.
So there were a few losses there, have they not? Yes, very much so. But on the gaining front, they've got Tom Lynon from Warrington, which is a good signing.
Rather curious one, I would say, given that they got Tom Johnston there.
True. Lee Gaskell, that's another brilliant sign, I think, from
the Huddersfield
Giants. Yeah. Corey Hall from Leeds. I'm going to get this wrong.
Sadiq Adebiyi, I think, from the London Broncos.
Yeah, from the London Broncos. Liam Hood from the Centurions. Thomas Mint from Featherstone. And John...
Well, I believe he was going to go to York on trial, but then he backed out of the York deal and then joined Wakefield. Promoted to a 1-year deal after a successful trial period. And John Avatanavalu,
From the British Army.
yeah, another prestigious rugby union talent from the British Army joining rugby league.
Yeah, code switch.
Nothing wrong with that.
No, not at all.
Nothing wrong
It's
with that at
good
all.
to test your skills in
I mean,
different sporting
Barton
codes.
Arlago played for the British Army,
Yeah,
Army and Union, and he jumped over to play for Hull for a time.
yeah. It's good that they're testing their skills in different sporting codes. Mind you,
Well, the
rivals-
superior code,
Well,
despite not having the global presence.
Exactly, yes. So they've made some good signings, especially like Lynham and Gaskell, I
Well,
believe.
Lynham's a curious one for me, but it would depend on the fitness and the health of Tom Johnston, because I think Johnston's a lock-in on that left edge, and Lynham's a left edge specialist mainly. So I think it would be interesting to see if he can flourish on the right-hand side.
It would be. He could do it, I believe, but we just had to wait and see how the how this team goes in the first year. We can see if he's capable.
I like the acquisition of Liam Hood from Lee. I think that's a very smart signing there. Losing both Kyle and Josh Wood from the lineup.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, good signing there from Willie Poaching.
Yeah, that is the case. Now, what do Wakefield have to overcome in the first 5 rounds of the season?
Tough teams.
First up, they got to face Hull FC at home with Josh Reynolds, Darnell McIntosh leading the charge as Hull's new recruits, and of course Jake the Snake Connor, always a danger when it comes to this. And I think they'll be out for blood to avenge that 44-12 defeat Hull FC suffered, really last game of the season.
Yeah.
Then, round 2 trip to the south of France to face the Catalan Dragons at home.
Don't even bother turning up. Catalans are going to destroy
Catalan will destroy them.
Destroy them.
And if
same
it
with
gets
the next
any
game.
better, then they've got to go back to England and travel to Merseyside to face the reigning champions St Helens.
Yeah, another one. Don't even bother turning up.
And their first telecast game of the year, they have to face the Leeds Rhinos and your good old-fashioned West Yorkshire derby.
I mean, the derby will bring something. Like, Trinity will be in the game, but Leeds will have the upper hand.
And wrapping it off, another trip to the south of France, this time to face Toulouse Olympique.
Yeah, that was hard to tell because Toulouse with Toulouse being a new team, we don't know how they're going to go. So
First 2 months will gauge where Toulouse are, but I think it'll also gauge where Wakefield are as well, because to put it quite fair, their results over the last 3 years have not been up as a genuine contender.
absolutely not. That has not been.
I mean, when have Wakefield in the last 3 years positioned themselves for a playoff berth?
None that I can think of. Not even close.
But they have spent the last 3 years 9th, bottom 3 of the table, only above Hull KR for the Wooden Spoon in 11-team competition, and 10th last year, I should say.
Yeah. So they've been nowhere near the playoffs. Nowhere near it. Which is disappointing to see because they have shown on occasions that they are a capable side.
Well, they have been able to knock off high-quality opposition like the Warrington Wolves, but they haven't been able to do that all year.
No. That's why they need to work on being consistent. I've said that pretty much every team we've previewed, or the bulk of the teams we've previewed this year. Consistency is what a lot of teams need to work on. And Wakefield's one of probably the higher up in the list than any other club.
Yeah, I would definitely think that is the case. And I think it will be... Willie Poaching will be under pressure right off the bat. Never mind Sylvain Houlet, never mind Paul Rowley at Salford. Willie Poaching now has got to take the mindset he got in his first stint as a head coach in Super League at Wakefield. And he's got to say, you know how he played at the back end of the year when we had nothing to play for? That's the way we got to play for week in, week out if you want to be in the playoffs and get to the grand final. Look at what Hull KR did. They were last, and then they were 80 minutes away from the grand final a year later.
Yeah.
If you want to be there, you got to do what they did.
Absolutely. And with that mindset, if it says that to their players, that will hopefully change their mindset and get their, mindset in the right frame, and they'll focus better and perform better out on the field. Little things like that off the field does translate onto on-field performances.
And look, Wakefield are going to be a much different side to the one on the start started out in 2021. But like I said, poaching's ability to coach will be put to the test. And given the fact that you look at that Wakefield roster, are you really intimidated by anyone on that list?
Besides Lynham and Gaskell and Hood, no.
I mean, Tom Johnston.
Maybe, yeah.
Tom Johnston, you'd be concerned with if he can get his fitness right, because he's an absolute god. Like, he's a good try scorer. Don't get me wrong. And he helps Wakefield get out of trouble.
And Lino, when he sets up tries.
Well, Mason Lino is an underrated half, but he really needs a good forward pack. And I mean, you look at the forward pack. What do they got? Batty, Ashurst, Arona. They don't have Adam Tengata like they did. They lost David Fafita. Joe Westerman is a big loss for them.
That is a massive loss. Massive.
It's a loss. And I don't know if Max Jowett, even though Max Jowett has been given the number 1 squad number, I don't think he is the number 1. I'd be more willing to back Gaskell to start at fullback.
Yeah, agree with you right there. He's got Gaskell's got the experience, and knows how to kind of, you could say, control the team and run the ball and all that stuff. He's a good fullback.
But at the end of the day, I don't think Wakefield are going to really challenge anyone. They might peel off the occasional win, but I don't think they're going to do enough to really challenge. And I think you look at all the heavyweight teams they got, like your Saints, your Catalans, your Warringtons, your Leeds, Wigan's on the outskirts. I don't think they're going to perform.
No, I don't think so either.
But they're still going to do enough to avoid relegation. I think that's the saving grace of Wakefield. They're still strong enough not to get relegated.
No. So, where do you think they've got to finish overall?
Well, mainly, they just got to get the right mindset, but I don't think they can. I think this is the exact same thing that happened with the Bulldogs, 2018 to 19. We had that good end of year, but the following year, we just didn't deliver it up, and we were literally running last until we kicked in at the back 10 rounds. I think this will be a similar sort of pattern we're going to see here. So, Wakefield, last year, they finished 10th on the table. I think they're going to finish 11th.
They're going to improve a little bit compared to 2021, which there is a lot of room for improvement there for Wakefield, but it won't be enough. They're going to finish the season in 12th and get relegated to the championship.
So you think Wakefield are up for relegation?
Yep. And I'm going to throw a spanner in the works and say who I think is going to come up on the championship already to replace them.
All right. Who are you going to back?
Halifax Panthers.
Really?
Yep.
You're backing Halifax over Featherston?
Yep.
All right. It's your funeral. Will I arrange it? Probably not.
No, but I reckon Trinity will go down and Halifax will come up. All
right. So
bold prediction. Very bold.
Well, you heard it here first. The first team from the championship to be promoted in Mark's estimation. Me, I'm going to wait and see, because I still think there might be one or two teams that have something to say about that.
Fair enough.
But from one saying Wakefield to stay and one saying Wakefield should go.
Should go.
Make of that as you will. Now, the Warrington Wolves. Well,
yeah.
Practically outside of the grand final in 2018, this has practically been form for Steve Price's side.
You could say that.
Kick ass in the regular season, which they have done.
Yeah.
Only to bottom out in the playoffs.
Yeah.
That has been the pattern. This is the this is the third straight year Warrington have been knocked out in the first week of the playoffs matches. They got knocked out by Castleford in 2019. They lost to a 6th place Hull FC in 2020. And now they lost to a 6th place Hull KR in 2021.
And they lost 19-0.
Which is embarrassing. I mean,
Warrington should not be doing that. Warrington should be there 80 minutes away or in the grand final year in, year out.
I mean, Warrington are a good side. I mean, they were hanging on to the lower part of the top 6 for the early start point of the season, but then they just kicked it in the overdrive at the back end, and they didn't look back. They were practically clinging to third for half the season.
Yeah, that's certainly true. But it's just something that just couldn't get them across that line and past the first week of the finals.
Well, they didn't have the best opening game, but it doesn't matter about the opening game because it always matters how you do after that.
Exactly.
And after that, they did quite well. I mean, back-to-back wins in League and Cup when you throw in a draw against Hull.
Yeah.
First team to stop the Catalan Dragons at that point.
That is true.
And Catalan and St Helens were the best two teams by far. So you get Warrington, the only team to have beaten Catalan and St Helens at least once in the same year.
Yeah. So they've got
no one else has that record.
They've got the team. They're a big club over in the Super League, but they just can't get the final bit over the line. And like I said, they should be fighting for the grand final, if not in the grand final, year in, year out. But no, there's something. Something's not right at the back end of the season / the start of the playoffs.
Since late June, they'd only conceded 2 defeats.
Yeah.
40. Only 2 losses in the final half of the season they played. They were literally unstoppable.
They were. But come the playoffs, something went
It just went wrong again. It just went... Since they made the grand final against Wigan, every time they've made the playoffs since, it's always something went wrong.
But we just don't... Well, they might not know, let alone we might not know.
All right, Greg Inglis. What did you make of Greg Inglis coming out of retirement to play for the Wire?
Well, we didn't play that many games, to be quite honest with you.
Well, you're right. He didn't. He only played 3 times, scored 2 tries, all up, and then went back into retirement due to injury. But not for the reasons why he got medically retired in 2019.
Look, so we got, 2 tries in 3 games?
2 tries, 3 games, knocked Catalan out to the Cup quarterfinals.
So he still had it in him, don't get me wrong, but it was going to be hard for him to stay in the starting side week in, week out with how strong Warrington's lineup is. He might have struggled come mid-year, getting used to it all again.
Well, the game had changed in the 2 years he was out. He came back. I mean, he came back in the 6 again era, no less.
Yeah, true.
Maybe in his prime, he could have been absolutely destroying sides left and right.
Totally agree.
And would have guided Warrington to a grand final.
Easily.
But, no, not to be.
No.
And once again, entered retirement. But
and would it be the last time? Probably.
It will be the last time. I don't think he's going to come back out of retirement again. You might find him at Group 9 bush footy.
Yeah.
But he's not going to be playing first grade rugby league, or even like what I think Glenn Stewart did, join the Illawarra competition.
Yeah. Like a local one to just have the experience and help guide the young ones through.
But yeah, no, Warrington, I would say another good year, but concerning playoff form really emerging. In that they are consistently finishing within the top half of the table, 3rd in 2019 and 2020 and 2021, 4th in 2019, having made the grand final from 4th, and they did beat St Helens in that semi-final to get there. So
yes, that's the concerning part of the playoffs tour.
Would we call Steve Price's tenure a success with the 2 Challenge Cup finals they appeared in and the 1 grand final they appeared in, but only 1 piece of silverware out of that?
Yes and no. No, because they could have gone on to win more silverware than what they did, but yes, because
they have potential. They have shown what they are capable of. I mean, being the only side to have beaten the Catalan Dragons and St Helens in the same year, when other sides have really struggled to beat them.
Most definitely, yeah.
At their best, they're amongst the top.
They are. But the playoffs is what they need to work on.
They need to convert playoff win. They need to get wins in the playoffs to get there.
Yeah.
Now, the standout player, I'm going to say it was Gareth Widdop.
Yeah.
I think this was his best year.
Close second, George Williams.
Or
maybe not.
I think it's a bit hard to say George Williams, considering he only did play half a season.
True.
On both sides of the world.
Yeah, true.
But
when you got over there and partnered Widdop in the halves, that was a strong combination.
Well, in the case of Gareth Widdop, 17 appearances, 10 tries, 13 try assists, 25 from 30 goals converted, 51 tackle breaks, 10 offloads, 10 line breaks, and a 40-20.
So he had a brilliant season with it. And he's capable of doing that. And he's capable of doing that in year in, year out.
Well, he didn't really do it at the Dragons because he was injury prone, but now that he's starting to get back overcoming all these injuries, he will be a brilliant asset for Warrington moving forward.
Most definitely. He's the one that could help them steer to a grand final. One of the players that can, amongst a list of many others.
In his time, I think I might have said this in the past, I think during Gareth Widdop's tenure, Warrington will make a grand final.
Definitely. I'll see it happening.
But we do have to see who they'll have to do it without. Greg Inglis, of course, returning to retirement after his short Orton Sharp cameo. Chris Hill, long-time original skipper. Well, not really original, but long-time skipper in recent times, joining the Huddersfield Giants. Blake Austin joining the Leeds Rhinos. Keenan Brand linking up with the Leeds Centurions. Tom Lyman, of course, as we touched on, joining Wakefield. Sitaleki Akawala linking up with Salford. And Sammy Kabula joining the Bradford Bulls.
And they've also got Jake Marmo, who's joined Castleford.
Yes, of course, Jake Marmo. Oh, so there'll be no more streaking the field looking for hat tricks every opportunity.
No. But they have gained Joe Bullock from Wigan Warriors, Greg Miniken from Hull KR, Peter Mattausia from Castleford, as well as Oliver Holmes, Billy Magulius from Cronulla Sharks here in Australia, and James Harrison from Featherstone.
Yeah, very interesting. And of course, we got to acknowledge that George Williams did join in mid-2021 from the Canberra Raiders there. Look, I really think it's interesting with Darryl Powell coming over that he brought over Ollie Holmes, a capable back rower in his own right, and Peter Mattausia from the Castleford Tigers.
True. But I reckon Peter would... Yeah, I'll spit it out right. Would Peter Mattausia go straight into Marmo's position?
Oh, he'd be playing right centre outside Josh Charnley for sure.
Yeah. There's good strike power there.
Oh, Mattausia and King in the centres. Toby King, that is.
Yeah.
There's Greg Miniken. Oh.
That's a bit of an interesting signing.
Well, I think he'll be struggling for game time at Warrington. I think, given Matty Ashton has been given the number 5, and I think investment in youth is what everyone's interested in, I think Miniken might miss out since his days when he was part of a lethal wing pair at the Castleford Tigers with Greg Eden.
True. But, you never know. When injuries come astray, will come around, he's there.
Well, that is true. Injuries could come knocking. We'll just see how resilient they are. Billy Magulius.
He didn't get as much game time.
I think he was very unlucky not to get as much game time with the Sharks as he should have got.
He's got the potential.
And unfortunately, he's not going to get much... Well, to start with, he's going to be missing for the first month of the campaign because he did an injury to himself in pre-season.
Yes.
So this is just going to add insult to injury. Well, it is adding injury to insult that he was overlooked for several games back home.
Yeah. But...
And World Cup spot with Greece on the line. He wants to be fully fit for that game.
Give him a few starting games and he will show what he's capable of. He has got the potential. It's just unfortunate that Cronulla couldn't give him the game time needed.
Well, he should have got the game time.
He should have got the game time, but he got overlooked numerous
I don't
times.
know why John Morris overlooked him. But that's the way it went, so that's all we can say on that. Now, first 5 games of the season, and we've got the Leeds travelling to face the Leeds Rhinos in a historic fixture because Channel 4 in the UK will be providing the game free to air. So this will be the first free to air game that Channel 4 will cover in the Betfred Super League.
Yes, it certainly is, and it's a good deal that viewers that aren't willing to pay for Sky Sports can get free to air games.
I think Channel 4, if this works out, which I think it should, or it can,
it will.
Broadcast deal upgraded to cover all the Thursday, Friday, and the French fixtures like Sky Sports do.
Yep.
So you get 3 days worth of rugby league in and the Magic Weekend and thrown in on top of that. So and still get BBC Sport to cover other the Challenge Cup fixtures.
So it's kind of like the Channel 9 Fox.
Exactly, along the Channel 9 Fox model.
Yeah.
And it will really help grow the game.
It certainly will.
Aim in the South. Now, first Sky Sports fixture of the year, a home game against the Castleford Tigers.
Warrington should win that one.
Well, for Darryl Powell, he'd be thinking, all right, so I'm going up against the old firm that I've been part of close to 8 years, and I took to a grand final and a couple of Challenge Cup upbursts. This should be, a hard game to swallow, but if I win, I win.
Yeah, exactly. And with the home crowd too, it's definitely going to spur Warrington on to get over Castleford.
Now the first leg of their southern French trip to face Toulouse Olympique.
This is going to be a real test.
I think this will be in Warrington's favour.
But yes, it'll be Warrington's favour. As I said in the Toulouse preview, it's going to be a real test for Toulouse to start off with.
But the French flavour doesn't stop there, because in round 4 they're back at home again in front of the Sky Sports cameras against the Catalan Dragons.
This one I am looking forward to.
Oh, Warrington Catalan. There is spice in this fixture.
Most certainly
There is spice. Ever since the 2018 Challenge Cup, where Catalan beat Warrington, there have been spice in these games.
It certainly has been. And Catalan's absolutely dominated 2021. And Warrington, they finished third, and they have shown what they are capable of as well. That is, I'm going to circle that game on my calendar as.
And if you're circling that one in, circle this one in as well. Saints Warrington round 5.
Yeah.
Especially considering Warrington bumped them off 6-2 in one of their meetings last year.
Low scoring game, but it produced bloody good quality football.
I definitely did. It absolutely did.
So 2 games in a row for Warrington.
That would be blockbusters.
Oh, most definitely. I'm definitely circling both those on my calendar.
I think the big test for Darryl Powell is how quick can he get Warrington firing. I think that will be the main thing. Fortunately, Gareth Woodop and George Williams will now have a full pre-season to prepare and build on the 2021 combination that they started with.
Yeah. And look, they'll just get stronger and stronger as the season goes on. Widdop and Williams, easy. They're going to be one of the best in the competition this upcoming season.
But what I think they'll get out of this is, I think they'll get a fresh look on things, because I think Darryl Powell knows what it takes to get to a grand final. And I think some of his ideas, sort of like how else do I put this? When you get a fresh coach in and you look at,
New era? Start?
Fresh take on things. And I think Darryl Powell, there'll be a lot of lessons you can take from Castleford and apply them to Warrington to build a strong, viable Super League contender.
True.
That we know the Wolves are.
And Darryl Powell has shown with Castleford that he can take teams to the grand final and a Challenge Cup final. And he's got the squad at Warrington to take it even further.
I definitely think the big test will be trying to match pace with both the Catalan Dragons and St. Helens, as they were the runaway sides.
Easy. It definitely would be.
Like I said, I think Warrington do have the squad, and I think Darryl Powell could be the perfect fit for Warrington.
Yeah.
Look, I think they'll actually make it to the grand final this year. I know this is going to be a lot of heartbreak, because I said last week I think St. Helens will also be in the grand final. So there you go. I'm calling a Warrington St. Helens grand final, but I already said I don't see any reason why Saints aren't going to win 4 in a row from third on the table.
Fair. Warrington fans, block your ears, give me backlash, do whatever you want to hate me whatsoever. They've got the squad. They're going to perform well week in, week out. But I probably said this last season as well, and I've got that massive with wrong. Unfortunate long-term injuries to key players is going to not do them any good. So I'm going to predict Warrington Wolves to finish in 8th.
You think they're going to miss the playoff, even with St. Helens not being as dominant as they once were, which the Wolves could capitalise on.
But long-term injuries to key players at the wrong time of the year is probably going to hurt this season. And I probably said the same thing last season.
You did, and you were absolutely bloody wrong.
Don't mind me, I've got nothing against Warrington, don't get me wrong, but this is only predictions, and that's what I predict.
Of course it is. This is all we are.
Maybe next year I'll say Warrington will finish higher. But we have to wait and see how this season goes first.
Well, last year, Warrington finished 3rd and were knocked out in the elimination final against Hull KR. This year, I'm going to say they take out the league leaders' shield and will face St. Helens in the grand final. albeit losing.
Albeit losing, fair enough. And now, the final Super League team that we are going to cover in our predictions, the Wigan Warriors.
I was actually a bit disappointed with Wigan.
Same
They
here.
made the playoffs, but they didn't capitalise on that 2020 form when they took out the League Leaders Shield. It was just sort of like they started out strong, and I mean very strong, but just they just didn't look absolutely convincing.
So they had a block of wins and a couple blocks of losses and block of wins again. So
That middle part with round 8 down to 12 because round 9 got rescheduled. They got blown off the park by Catalan, 48-0. Then they lost to Hull KR, and Wakefield on top of that in an upset loss. And then they got towed up by Warrington and St Helens.
yeah, look, their losing streak, you could say, or their losses were at the wrong time of the season. And like you said, in the round 7 to 13, you could say, was the period that hurt them the most, possibly. And even when they lost in round 19 to 21, where the other losses,
Well, they lost to Hull KR again, got nilled by Leeds, and then held trialers by Saints.
So those two lost blocks are the ones that hurt their season the most, especially the back end one with round 19 to 21 against Hull KR, St Helens and Leeds.
They just didn't look convincing.
No.
The Warriors. And I don't know what Adrian Lamb was looking at. Oh, well, I'd probably guess he was probably wondering the same thing. We're not performing to what we can do. And I mean, John Bateman was a big part of what Adrian Lamb wanted to do in his final year at Wigan. And I thought bringing Bateman back was sort of like, oh yeah, they're going to kick on and make it back to the grand final again. Turns out Bateman was in and out with injury, and he didn't really he didn't deliver what he can do.
Exactly, and like get the momentum and the force he usually is.
Just the mid-year drop they had, it sort of stuffed them over.
It certainly did.
Especially when they got blasted off the park by the Catalan Dragons in what was their worst result of the entire campaign.
Yeah, it wasn't not pretty for them whatsoever. Not pretty.
And then they get held scoreless by Leeds in the elimination final. I know it was like only one try was in it, and it was just sort of like, well, that was sort of an underwhelming way to finish.
Bit of an anticlimax, you could say.
It was an anticlimax.
Because Wigan can perform.
Wigan have performed.
Can.
They didn't. They were sort of chopping and changing with Bevan French and Zach Hardacre at fullback.
But French was
Field,
injured too.
Yes. Jai Field was literally not sighted for most of the year because he was suffering from injury.
Yes.
The backs were sort of disjointed because you had between Jake Bibby, Oliver Gildart was in and out of the side while he was missing for a large chunk of the season. And I would also say they moved Jackson Hastings between scrum half and fullback on the occasion.
True.
Actually didn't do too bad at fullback, I reckon.
No, he didn't, but he used Peter off at scrum half.
Yeah. And of course, John Bateman just struggled with injuries. He's in form.
Yeah.
So
there's a few things that went against the Warriors, and that's probably what hampered the season the most.
I would say it did. Especially when they got towed up by the likes of Catalan and Warrington.
Yeah. That really killed their focus and that.
Yeah. It did.
Their losses.
Well, before that, best player.
Oh, yes, sorry.
And then we'll segue that into departures. Jackson Hastings, in his final year with the Wigan Warriors, 22 appearances, 4 tries, 18 try assists, 1 from 2 goals converted, 87 tackle breaks, 13 offloads, and 5 line breaks.
He had a good season.
And playing at fullback as well, out of position.
Yeah.
And he performed rather well.
He performed well. Like, he may be preferred scrum half, but he can play fullback and he did a bloody good job at it.
Hidden talents, who knew? And of course, he is the first player that Wigan will really feel the departure of, as he and fellow teammate Oliver Gildart will both join the West Tigers in 2022. Tony Clubb has announced his retirement and is there for a long time or will no longer lace up the boot. It's Joe Bullock will depart for brighter blue and primrose pastures at the Warrington Wolves, Chris Hankinson to link up with Toulouse Olympique, and Amir Burrow joining Salford.
Some massive losses there. Before we go into more detail, we go to the games. The first three signings I've got listed here is Kate Ellis from St George Illawarra, Patrick Mago from South Sydney Rabbitohs, and Kate Cuss from Manly. So a bit of an NRL raid there.
As well as picking up Lebanese international Abbas Miski from the London Broncos, and his fellow teammate Ramon Silva, the Brazilian international,
and Ian Thornley from the Leeds Centurions.
Interesting signature. Probably one of the highest ranking Brazilian test player they got in the system. I mean, Super League's no strangers to really having a blend of international or players. I mean, Jimmy Kindhorst, German international. They got a couple of pure Irish players like Ronan Michael floating down in the championship.
Yeah.
But Beretta Faraimo, US international. Well, now we get Brazilians like Ramon Silva coming in.
Yeah, so they've got a mix of international players, which is good to see. That I know it's not.
Cade Cust, I think, is an interesting signing because I'm looking at the first choice halves. I know he's been given the number 6, but just because you're given the number 6
doesn't mean you necessarily start there.
Exactly, because I think Tommy Lualai, in whether or not it's his final year, because it's hard to predict at this point. I mean, what is he? Almost 36?
He's getting on a bit, but...
Well, we can cheat because we've got the laptop sitting in front of us, as we usually do, so we can always look things up if we need... Well, he was 36, so you'll be going on 37, and before the year's out.
But he just know...
Harry Smith. I think Harry Smith is the first choice scrum half for the Wigan Warriors moving forward, and I think that'll benefit them going forward.
Yeah, I can agree with that. Young gun coming through. Might as well make the most of him while he's at his peak. Not saying that he'll drop off, but...
No, it depends.
Every player reaches their peak performance, and then they stay there for a year or two, then they ever so slightly drop down a bit.
Unless your name's Cleary.
Well, yes, and Cameron Smith, and the likes.
Well,
Melbourne Storm Cameron Smith, not the other Cameron Smith, yes.
Not Leeds Cameron Smith.
Yes.
Or the golfer Cameron Smith.
Yes. Had to clear that up there. Although, if you're rugby league fans, you would have known that anyway, but still wanted to clear it up.
I think the other big thing is Matt Peake coming in with the well, I wouldn't say the spectre, but he's definitely got Sean Wayne looking over his shoulder.
Yes.
It's really a double-edged sword because on one hand, you got the England coach who can provide you with valuable insight and experience, but at the same time, it could also turn against you the same way the Griffin-Gus dynamic at Penrith could also turn against you.
They both wanted to go the Griffin-Gus thing at Penrith. One wanted to go one direction, one wanted to go the other one.
It would heavily depend on what sort of role Sean Wayne will be looking to play at the Wigan Warriors. Of course, in the Super League era, Sean Wayne is Wigan's most successful head coach.
True.
Because 2013, grand final win. 2014, they were runners-up. 2015, they were runners-up. 2016, they were champions again. 2017, they were World Club Challenge champions. And in 2018, they were champions again when he left.
So, he's a very, very successful coach.
Him and Michael Maguire. Well, Michael Maguire only had one grand final win to his name, but still, that counts.
Better than what he's done at the West Tigers.
Well, isn't that the truth? Now, what do Wigan have to contend with for the first 5 rounds? Well...
Tough games.
Well, Hull KR, which has been something in the last 2 years, a bogey side.
True.
Alright, I'd at Hull College Crane Park. Back-to-back home games. First up against the Leeds Rhinos, the team that knocked them out in the elimination final.
And they'll be hoping to do that again. Except not in the finals.
Then they travel to Huddersfield. Well, they host Huddersfield in round 3 with Ian Watson in receiving reinforcements, including the best one in Theo Fage.
Yes.
Then back-to-back trips to the south of France. Toulouse 1 week, Catalan the next.
Yeah, I can see the Catalan one's going all the one way in favour of Catalan. So
Toulouse could go exactly the other way. That's what we're thinking.
But we don't know what's going to happen. Like I said, with Toulouse being a new club, it's hard to predict and get a read on what they're going to be like until the first few rounds are settled in.
Yeah. Look, I don't know where to think of Wigan at the moment. I mean, this is their 150th anniversary. So there is a lot of expectations for the Cherry and Whites to perform for a club that's just turned 150, for their existence both as a union before converting to a league side.
Yep. And speaking of the 150th anniversary, they will be looking to make the grand final, win the grand final. There'll be expectations will be extremely high,
They always are.
Not only by the club but by their fans.
It'll also be a big test for Matt Peat coming in, and after Adrian Lamb left to take the Centurions head job. So it's always going to struggle with a coach. But I think, fortunately, he's already part of that Wigan setup. So I think the players will give him the confidence to really be his own man and be his own coach, hopefully without Wayne looking over his shoulder.
Yeah. And if Pete wants to go in one direction, hopefully Sean Wayne will say, oh, this is a good idea, let's go with this idea. If not,
Bevan French, I think, will be a big benefit to bring him back in.
Keep him fit and firing.
Oh, big time. And John Bateman. If Bateman is fully fit, that right edge of the Warriors where you got Bateman, Hardacre, Jake Bibby, all on that right edge with Tommy Lualai or Harry Smith, depending which side they like to play the most. There'll be a lot of traffic down that side, but they're not on the same level that they once were. No. This defensive resolve that they once had in place. I think that, 2019 they were up there with St. Helens, but I think in the last couple of years they've sort of been dragged. They've come back to the pack.
Yeah.
And this is where St. Helens will go as well. Both Saints and Wigan will be back to the pack as other clubs will jump ahead of them.
Like Catlands.
Exactly. But they're not going to miss out on the playoffs. I think that's important to set. I think they're still going to be in the playoffs fold, but I think it's individual all circumstances, team effort, twist of fate to see whether or not they make the semi-finals or not.
Well, who knows? I've got a different prediction like you reckon, but anyway.
But I think it'll be a big test for them, but I think they'll still do enough to scrape into the top six. Last year, Wigan were 4th and were in the elimination final to the Leeds Rhinos. I think they'll be 6th and have to play off against St. Helens.
Okay. With losing Hastings and Gildart, it's going to hurt them big time.
True.
Massive big time. That's going to hurt them, which is where I'm going to see is where they're going to slide down from 4th and finish in 10th.
Wow, that is a very dramatic slide you got going for them there.
It is, but Gildart and Hastings will be the biggest losses, and it will show.
I think Hastings will be, but I think Harry Smith will be ready for it. But I think, and having Sean Wayne there, if it doesn't turn into another Gus versus Griffin sort of arrangement, I think he'll provide them with good mentorship.
Hopefully he does, but we just have to wait and see what happens come season, which is not too far away.
Well, no, actually, it's in 2 weeks. So we don't have that long to wait. Hey, well, that's all the Betfred Super League we can bring you, and that is full time from us. If you like this edition of the Sideline Chat podcast, make sure you leave a like, subscribe to the chat, and click that bell for notifications so you never miss a week of rugby league actions. Don't forget to give us a follow on our Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Sideline Chat for Facebook and Instagram, and it's Sideline Chat RL on Twitter, using the hashtag Sideline Chat RL or Side Chat YT. Don't forget that interview with Toulouse Olympique head coach Sylvain Houlet will be on sometime between 8 and 8:30 exclusively on Facebook, our second installment in our 1-on-1/2-on-1 interview series. Hope you enjoy your Australia Day if you're in this country or around the world, and we'll bring you the NRL else opening teams next week. How well will Adam Reynolds provide for the Broncos? Can the Raiders bounce back into the top 8? And what fortunes lie ahead for the Bulldogs and the Sharks? Along with Mark Hendry, I'm Connor Marcellus, and you have been listening to the Sideline Chat podcast. We'll see you next week.
See you, mates.